Welcome back. Well, yes, we're talking about, well, not just elections, but the build-up to elections, those who are supposed to organize and ensure the credibility of elections. It's right up there. Well, there are concerns at the moment. I mean, there's several reports, really, as to the resident electoral commissioners, some of them who will be exiting, some national commissioners. What is the current position? So if the tenure lapses, are there plans to ensure that either they renew or get other people in? So all of those are scenarios that lots of people are just raising questions about. So we've got Mr. Chukwumezala here with us. He's a legal practitioner. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you.
Well, this scenario which is going on at the moment, some say they're concerned about it. Is it really something that we should be concerned about, and to what degree?
You see, unfortunately, today we don't have the Electoral Act to use for the elections. It's still there. There's still politics going on. And people say that...
But the old one is still there.
Yes, the old one is still there, but it is because of the problems we have in the old one. That is why we are talking about getting the new one to address some of the challenges we have. Some people say that democracy is a game of numbers. But is it really a game of numbers? When people can manufacture numbers. You know, we remember what happened in Anambra State when one of the candidates manufactured 200 and something thousand to win the primaries. And at the end of it all, people that voted, the entire parties did not get up to 200 and something thousand.
Well, I don't know about manufacturing.
So it's no longer a game of numbers. It's never a game of numbers. It's a game of numbers and accountability. You must account for how you got the numbers, and that is why we need credible people in INEC. Now, we have crises in many African countries today. We have in Zambia, we have in Mali. These are all election-related crises, and these are issues of accountability. So the question becomes, what should the president do? I think at this stage, since we have just 6 months into the elections, yes, the election is February, but the actual preparation is between now and June, July. So I think the president should withdraw the list he had sent to the National Assembly and give people with experience.
Why should he withdraw the list?
Now, the list contains people that may not have worked in the electoral team before. We are now, not that they cannot go and learn, but is this the period that we can go and learn? The answer is no. It's very important, and if Nigeria joins the group that are entering into election crisis, then we are gone. So, because the electoral law has been delayed, because we are not starting early enough, the best thing now is to say who did it well.
So if I understand you right, those who their tenure will be lapsing in 2022, the president has sent a list of new people to replace them, and you think that those people who, with due respect to them, who are on that list, shouldn't actually be. You want the president to retain some of the people who are currently there because you say they've got experience. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, sure. Take, for instance, Professor Ibanu. Professor Ibanu has been doing well. He was also special assistant, technical assistant to Professor Jega, whose election we have continued to say is a bit okay. We also have somebody like Professor Kuna, who also assisted at that time. We have some of the resident electoral commissioners that have done wonderfully well in their own areas. You have people like Mr. Mike Igin that should have gone in as a national officer. You have Mr. Sadiq, who is REC of Sokoto, who should also have gone in. And why can't we have these people into the system? When you look at the background on where they are coming from.
Yes. Perhaps one of the questions to ask is, what exactly are how crucial are the functions of the National Commissioner of INEC? Many people can easily, identify the role of a Mike Igini because of some of the things that we've heard about him. But what are the functions of a National Commissioner, and how is that so crucial to the election?
They are the people that plan and decide how the election will be. Look at Anambra State. We were about to have crisis in Anambra State, and Professor Ibanu was detailed to go to Anambra State. And that's the only reason why you saw Anambra State coming out very okay and people very satisfied. Simply because Professor Ibanu took over and did it. Remember that they supervised the REC. 12 of them, they make policies, they take decisions. If there are problems, they take better decisions that will assist. If there are issues of interpretation, now we have a lot of political parties especially major political parties that are in crisis. The ruling party today, the leader of the ruling party, President Muhammad Buhari, had informed them that if they don't take time, they may lose the elections. So it means that the ruling party is having very serious crisis in itself. Once you have credible people who can account, who will be accountable to the number of votes that will come out, you see everybody will sit up. It's no longer a question of people trying to field people that cannot win elections and believe that they can manufacture numbers. This is why we need Nigeria at this stage. We need Mr. President to look at it from, so that he will not be the president that will preside over a crisis-ridden Nigeria. He will not be a president that will be the last president of a united Nigeria. Nigeria is in crisis. Almost all the states are in flames. And what do you do to restore confidence in the system? During the time of President Jonathan, there was brewing of crisis. And what happened? President Jonathan decided to say, let the votes count. And he brought Professor Jega. And he brought some others, including Igini and others, to say, okay, let's have people from the civil society. And all of them came. And the tension was a bit down. And we had the elections, and there wasn't. And the sitting president had to call President Buhari and say, congratulations, because of the credibility of people that conducted the election, not necessarily of the laws, but of the people, the integrity of the people who are conducting the election. Why can't we do it now?
Well, let's toss to Abuja and get more perspective on the same matter. Markwe.
Thank you, Chamberlain. We have with us Mr. Sameela Musa, who is a National Coordinator, Grassroots Mobilization Initiative, and also a part of the Coalition of Northern Groups. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. It's a little, I don't know, it's a little befuddling. It is true that some of the tenures of the national commissioners are coming to an end. But it does seem that, you know, this story we're seeing going all over the place about the president not reappointing some national commissioners who have served the commission well. Why is there worry? Because some people will say that Nigeria has a huge pool of people with integrity. Why is there a clamor of some sort for the retainment of commissioners who are said to have done well?
Yeah, it's actually a source of worry. It's a source of concern to virtually every well-meaning Nigerian. If just about a year to election, we're here debating whether to retain or not to retain, you know, people who have done incredibly well. Now, we're talking about election amendment bill. You know, that has not been settled yet, you know. And there's so many conspiracy theories around that to say, oh, well, some godfathers somewhere, some persons who felt, you know, the voice of the people shouldn't be heard. Some persons who are feeling, look, by the time the people start dictating the tide of the elections or who occupies what position, then we are actually threatened. It's actually at that same time, because, I mean, the whole thing about the electoral amendment bill is about credible elections. Is that at that particular time that we're beginning to mark some persons out in INEC, some persons who have lived above board, some persons who have actually proven to Nigerians, you know, that it's really possible. I mean, we can actually get to our promised land, because it's about deciding the outcome of elections. And these people have actually stood the test of time. You know, even though there are instances where some of them, where you think, oh, he who pays the piper dictates the tune, you know, they might want to dance to the tune of the ruling party. They acted based on what they felt is right. So it's not at this kind of time, with the way the whole country is, because Nigeria has never been at the verge of a precipice like we have at this time. So it's not really at this kind of time that you really want to start bringing in the baggage of people who we don't even know yet. You understand? People who are already perceived that they are actually coming in. Most of them are actually nominated by APC stalwarts. They are not coming in because, you see, when you have people who are much interested in the outcome of the election, or people who are actually going to participate in the election, still the same people who are, you know, dictating who make it to, I mean, who is going to be the electoral umpires is really, really worrisome. And that's why quite a lot of people are getting worried that perhaps this whole thing is just carried.
Do we know that for sure?
Well, you see, the point we're making is, of course, nobody is indispensable. You understand? Nigeria has a pool of, you know, people of integrity, credible people, and all of that. But you see, there's so much on ground already. When you have so much at stake in terms of what's going to happen in 2023, already there are questions because the way APC is going about it, everybody is feeling maybe they have something they're planning, you know, because when your body language doesn't seem to say you really want to conduct a credible election. So at that same time, you're bringing this kind of joker to say, well, we're going to change these people. There are people in INEC that you feel, look, let us begin to set good precedents to say, to stand for what is right, to stand for integrity really pays in the long run. Maybe perhaps after 2023, because Buhari himself is also a product of people standing for what is right. And most of these people who are actually going out now oversaw the election that brought him in, even though, you know, we had a sitting president that they will have acted otherwise. So, and that is why there's so much on ground now to be considered to say, look, for now, we see so many lacunas in the electoral amendment bill, or rather, we see so many loopholes, and that's why people are making inputs. The National Assembly had spoken because they listened to their constituents to say, well, we need to do this, we need to do that to make sure that we have credible elections. So is that not at that kind of time that you're injecting new people that we don't even know what they stand for? Where they're coming from is actually questionable. The people who are nominating them, there are big question marks on them. Yeah, what is your interest?
There are, I mean, some people will say that this is totally within the president's right. He reserves the prerogative to appoint new people or to retain those who are there. And let us not forget that. Let us assume, for instance, that the tenure of these people, I think you have a maximum of 2 terms, which you can do, and that's it. Yeah. So assuming they had done the maximum of 2 terms and it was close to an election year, would we be saying, oh, Mr. President, you cannot bring new people at the eve of, you know, a year to a general election because the legacy which you want to leave of credible elections will be at stake? Isn't it entirely his prerogative? No,
nobody's actually taking that away from him. The actual issue we should be talking about now is it possible for their tenures to be extended? You understand? So if they say, oh, it's his prerogative to retain, to actually bring in new people, it's also his prerogative to look into it and say, well, because these people have lived above board, and we're trying to, because you see, this whole credible election is actually an institutional thing. Forget about, of course, you have pockets of incidences here and there where overzealous staffs, down the chain of command in INEC who will want to act otherwise. But when you have people at the top who actually are standing right, people who are actually doing the right thing, sometimes you want them to stay longer, such a way that they have ample time to actually pass down. Because you see, sometimes when the institution, the leadership is getting it right, when they have ample time to actually foist that same thing on the chain of leadership, it becomes more or less like a culture. You understand? So people already get used to it over time. As a matter of fact, when Jiga was leaving because of what he did, so many people were feeling he should have stayed and even oversee another election. You understand? So there are people in INEC that we shouldn't just let go at this kind of time. The polity is already overheated. So you really want some sane people to remain in INEC such a way that, because the confidence has already, people have so much confidence in INEC now over time. That wasn't just one particular election that proved that. We've seen so many elections that actually came to play. And that's why the confidence level was, a bit boosted to this level that we're having now. It's not at this kind of time that you want to erode the confidence people already built in INEC. You just allow time, let the system really permeate through the ranks and file in INEC before you begin to make this kind of changes. Especially there are people who have acted exceptionally well, people who have returned monies, people who have shown that, look, it's not everybody. We still have sane people in Nigeria. You really want to retain those kind of people to stay longer in the system. That's what the point we're making.
Well, Chairman, I'm just wondering, for those who are, doing this, who exercise these fears, is there great ground for them to, exercise the fears that it's a little too late in the day to be changing national commissioners? I don't know what our guest in Lagos will have to say about that.
I mean, you can go ahead and respond to that. I'm sure you heard it.
Yeah, yes, I heard him. Take, for instance, the issue of whether some of their 10 years have expired or whether they can be renewed. Professor Ibano really can be renewed because he still can go the second tenure. That is one. Now, when you look at the issue of Mr. Mike Igini, who is a resident electoral commissioner, now, usually when somebody passes election or when somebody passes in another class, exams rather, he is promoted. So he was rec, and we could see the type of work he had done in Edo State. The only time APC was able to win an election in 2011, rather. Now, 2015. He was able to, when we had stalemate in Imo State, on 2 occasions he went there and rescued it, and people said, yes, the election was conducted very well. In Calabar, the same thing. Now, you have, and he, sometimes after elections, he returns money, unused money. Mr. Sadiq from Sokoto, a recent electoral commissioner too, he also returns money, and when they wanted to rig an election in Sokoto, he was able to stop it. These are people, if they have stayed 2 tenures as resident electoral commissioner, you should be able to promote them as national commissioners. And it's not a question of whether the president has the prerogative to appoint. The president is representing us. The president is representing Nigerians. And the president swore to uphold the wishes of Nigerians. So if these people have done well, what should the president do? The next thing is to reappoint them, either as national commissioners, but to retain them, especially, not that there are people, not that we don't have people that are better than them, but do we start testing new people at this stage? The answer is no.
Well, we know about, political campaigns and the rest. We started off the show saying that we're in the season, but it sounds to me as though you're even campaigning now, INEC campaign. Are you campaigning for these people?
I'm campaigning for Nigerians. I'm campaigning that Nigeria should remain united.
But you're particular about the names.
No, I'm particular about them because these are the names that have been thrown out. Like when I say Sadi, when I say Professor Ibano, you look at what Professor Ibano did in Anambra State. When we talk about what Jega did, am I campaigning for them? When people have done well, you campaign for such people to be retained. If we have people that have done as good as them, yes, there are still many of them there, you retain them. But if you say, oh, don't mention names, Mr. President may not know. Some of us belong to the civil society, so we watch INEC, we look at what they do, we look at some of them that are doing well, we look at the type of things that are being thrown out. So why won't you mention names? We should mention names of those that didn't do well, and we should also mention names of those that did well. Otherwise, we're not doing good to the system.
Now, that's on the one hand. Now, you referenced the people...
For instance, I've not met many of them,
right,
but we read them.
Of course. So you talked about some of the nominees of the president, and you said that he should withdraw those nominees. And I wonder, aren't you just unfairly preempting these people to think that they will not be capable to handle either a national commissioner role or a rec role? Isn't that unfair preempting?
No, look at what I'm saying. What I am saying at this stage is that where we are today, if they were being nominated 2 years ago, in which case they will start learning or will start knowing who they are. That's a different thing. But the point is that this is injury period. You don't, during the play, when you are playing, like when Nigeria was playing, and Nigeria, maybe, for instance, a country is down, two goals down, and you start removing the players that are playing well to bring in new people that will start learning the opponents. Do you understand? That is the issue. The issue is not a question of whether those people are going to do well. The issue is that some people have experience. if you enter a system, you start learning those people first. You start learning the staff. You start understanding the staff. You start understanding those that are fraudulent. But some of these people are already in the system. So they know those that are fraudulent among them. They know how to, just like, let me give you an example. Sibanu, for instance, went to Anambra State. Anambra State was already a state-managed place, if you ask people that were around. But when he was brought there, because he knew this staff, by virtue of experience for 4 years, 5 years in the system. So he was able to checkmate those that wanted to rig elections in Anambra State.
Wasn't that an indictment on the Resident Electoral Commission at that time?
Now, the Resident Electoral Commissioner is one person. He will need many other people. He will need supervisors. Normally, when you have election in only one place, there are so many interests. The party interests, the political parties, all the political big stalwarts will be in that area. There will be a lot of local governments where they will plan to do something.
Well, you cited the example, my apologies, you cited the example of Mr. Igini. He is also a resident electoral commissioner.
Yes. No, why I cited his own example, I said, just like Mr. Sadiq, I also cited.
Yes.
Like, for instance, why I cited them is that we have seen what they have done, like Mr. Igini, for instance.
My point here is, the question my colleague asked you, you're citing certain specific names.
Yes.
You know, some people who have served as national commissioners, and you said that Professor Ibanu went as national commissioner to Anambra.
Yes.
It is an indictment, wouldn't you say, on the resident electoral commissioner at the time, who couldn't do what you are praising Mr. Sadiq and Mr. Igini for doing?
Anyway, you know, people are differently talented. People are differently talented. So, like for these people, if you go to INEC cycle, you will understand what I am saying. They are highly talented. And not just the two of them that I've mentioned. Now, when you look at AVM, for instance, AVM who is also not being reappointed, go there, you see that he's also integrity personified. And these names, it's very unfortunate that maybe the Resident Electoral Commission in Anambra State is not among the names that are being thrown up as one of the best in INEC. And his tenure is also not threatened. But we're talking about those people that people have identified, that INEC itself had identified to use them. We have 12 electoral commissioners. And Ibanu was choosing to go to Anambra State. Ibanu worked with Professor Jega. So INEC has confidence in him. And the same thing, INEC has confidence in some of these resident electoral commissioners that when there are crises, these are the people that they will use. So why are you now dropping them?
I wonder if you see this challenge now, because if you say that it has to be these set of people or things wouldn't work, don't you think that, I appreciate that we need to appreciate the work they have done, which is understandable. If people do good, you need to commend them and reward them so you can encourage that kind of culture. But if you say that if these people are not chosen, then our electoral system will not work, isn't that a problem? Shouldn't we have a system that will work regardless of whether one person chooses to, impugn or malign that system? Shouldn't we be focusing on making the system itself work rather than giving too much powers to either a REC or a national commissioner who can then decide the outcome of an election?
Now, remember, I was speaking in context. The context is that the election is just 6-7 months away. Now, bringing new people, just like sending me there, I'll start learning. I may be the most brilliant person, or sending you, you may be the most brilliant person in Nigeria. But the point is, you will take 2-3 months to understudy people that are already there, to understand the fraudulent, because it's Nigeria. Even in America, you have a lot of fraudulent people too. So when new persons come in, first is to learn the system, wherever you are. And that is why we said we have entered the injury time. Having entered the injury time, why are you dropping people who can be extended? Why are you dropping people whose tenure, rather, why are you dropping people who we have already tested? There may be more angels outside. But is this the right thing at this stage? And I am not saying that if you don't take them, Nigeria will collapse. I have not said that. But what I have said is that this is what we know. You go from the known to the unknown. You don't go from the unknown to the known. And who, just like my colleague in Abuja said, who nominated these new people? These are party stalwarts. These are APC
the old people though?
No, party also nominated the old people, but they have proven themselves. But these ones, you don't know whether they are going to prove themselves. So now, which one is a lesser evil? To go for the ones you know, or to go for the ones you don't know? Which one is a lesser evil?
Well, I guess you will explain to us when we return in just a moment then, so don't go away. Welcome back. Well, you know, this appears to be playing itself out again because we know this was how Jega came up. Because at that time, Nigerians, even the opposition, they yelled and said, no, we didn't want who you have there already because we wanted people who were credible, people who we think would do a job. And that's how Professor Jega came through. Now, we're saying almost the same thing. How do we address this? Because tomorrow, who knows, we may be in a similar scenario. So shouldn't we, as my colleagues did say, ensure that, look, these are the kind of people we require to fit into this kind of system, such that we don't always have to leave it to the discretion of somebody. Or even if we have to, it should be at least glaring and obvious that, yes, even though whoever is expressing or exercising his or her discretion, it appears credible to a lot of people.
In 2011 to 2015, a lot of Nigerians were shouting. Political parties, APC was in the forefront to say who should be in INEC. Unfortunately, PDP is not doing that work now. Maybe they are scared that once they mention any name, those names will be disqualified. You know, the system we have now is a system that Nigerians are surprised at what they are seeing. It's no longer what they preached in 2015 that is taking place today. And the question initially was, what is the lesser evil? The lesser evil is to look at INEC, to look within, and find out those that did this work in 2015 that are still standing, that do not have much skeletons in their cupboard, and have the competence. It's not a question of so much of integrity as an individual. It's also the competence to do, the zeal and the fearless system of doing something, you know. So if you are the type, take for instance, you know, when I mentioned my friend will say I'm campaigning for something. A recent electoral commissioner was able to put people on the dock to try a professor for rigging an election in Akwa Ibom. So what do you say about that? Are you saying he's campaigning for him? And when you also look at the fact that the new people you're bringing in, we don't know where the last time it was my sister Onochie. And you would say, let us try her. Would you say, let us try her? Even if she's the best of the angels, you know Nigerians will not want it because this is an umpire.
Mr. Sal, one of the questions, I'd like to ask this question of Mr. Musa in Abuja. One of the questions that, you know, has seemingly been raised as a result of this conversation we are having is that it would seem like the INEC Establishment Act didn't preempt a succession system where, okay, those who have served as maybe resident electoral commissioner after some time will be able to say, hey, you should be able to serve as a national commissioner, having served as resident electoral commissioner for 1 or 2 terms. Do you think that is something that could have been considered or should be considered going forward?
Okay, can you take that question again? Because I actually lost you at some point.
Okay, well, you found me here now. I'm just wondering, from where you sit and your perspective, it would seem like the INEC Establishment Act didn't quite foresee a succession system where people who have been in the system for a number of years, for a period, whatever it may be specified in the INEC Establishment Act, should be the ones to be thrown up as national commissioners so that the system can be stronger. Do you think that is something that should have been considered or should be considered going forward?
Yeah, that should have been considered, you know, it should be a thing to be considered. But of course, it also depends on the integrity of those people. Because if you have a resident electoral commissioner who hasn't lived above board, who hasn't actually proven to Nigerians that he is a man of integrity, actually, I do not see any reason why such individuals should be promoted. You understand? Because perhaps what he couldn't do as a resident electoral commissioner, he will be able to do it as a commissioner. So really, it's something that needs to be looked into holistically. There should be rooms to say, well, for those who have exceptionally done well, of course, there should be room for promotions, and there should be rooms for people to be booted out when they have not actually, because integrity should actually be a word that shouldn't be missing. No matter how intelligent you are in INEC, if you are not a man of integrity, if you're not a man that stands for what is right, because the whole system about this electioneering thing is actually going to be thrown into the garbage if we don't have credible people to actually man positions. So really, it should be open. Yeah, there should be a succession plan in place. And because if over time, if people actually see it in such a way that, oh, it's not just the succession plan that is most important, but how you behave or your conduct actually also matters. You know, you can actually be a resident electoral commissioner and not be promoted based on this and that fact that has actually whatever dossier that is gathered against you. So that will really put people on their toes. But of course, sometimes you cannot give what you don't have. When you have people who are not credible, who are not people of integrity in place, they always just be pretending to have it, because you don't have. If you don't have it, really, there's nothing anybody that can actually do. Nobody can force it on you to be good. What we
Mr.
are
Musa,
going to be getting
one
over
thing
time
that also plays up on my
pretense.
mind, my apologies. One thing that also plays up from what you have said now is, while on the one hand, as you said, there is no preemption of a succession system, you know, especially in INEC, how then do we checkmate those who are not performing as creditably as they're expected to perform, given some of the things that Mr. Ezele has said here? Do we always have to wait for their tenures to end?
Say that again.
Do we always have to wait for their tenures to end before they are shown the door?
No, yeah, of course we shouldn't wait. I mean, if I don't know what the act in INEC says about this, the people who they're recruiting, but in the same manner that we shouldn't wait for people who have not acted well or who have not done well, credibly well, the same way they should be treated is the same way people who have actually done credibly well, there should be some provision in whatever acts they have in INEC to say, based on your performance, based on what you stand for, there's also a room for your tenure to be extended beyond just the 2-term limit.
Okay, so let me ask you what the fears really are. Has there been anything in the past that happened that makes this sort of agitation important?
Well, there are so many things that happen, but I'll give you the recent one, like my friend in Lagos, just mentioned, is people already feeling if what you couldn't succeed through Loretta or Noche is what you're bringing in another way, because I do not see the logic behind someone, not just a card-carrying member of the APC, someone who have defended the party at almost every fora, someone who speaks for the party, someone who speaks for the president in some occasions. It's if the party or the presidency have the effrontery to present such people to come and be an election umpire in the same election that APC is going to participate in, then it throws a lot of questions in the air. You understand? So really, this recent one actually shows that, well, we're already seeing it playing out. If, in spite of all the agitations that, oh, no, we all know who Loretta Onoche, she's not hidden. You understand? This is for someone who have actually spoken in defense of the party. You're bringing her to INEC as what? To come and do what? Is she going to act otherwise against the interests of the APC? No, is the question.
But some people will argue that the National Assembly was able to do what it needed to do, and she wasn't confirmed as a national commissioner.
Yes.
So shouldn't we trust the National Assembly to be able to do the needful with a new set of people if they are not the appropriate people that should be appointed for such positions?
Well, you see, sometimes the National Assembly also needs to be put on its toes. Just like what happened with this electoral amendment bill. What I thought is INEC will put its foot, National Assembly will put its foot on the ground to tell the president that, sir, the people who sent us here, we are not appointees of the president. The people who sent us here, they have spoken. whether what they say is right or wrong. We don't know what to go back home to go and tell them. This needs to be done. But what we saw instead is that, you know, it's all a script written somewhere that's just playing out. So
with regards to what?
With the regards to the electoral amendment bill, you understand? And that's why the position right now is that, oh, okay, since they're not going to do it, perhaps so that you don't throw the baby away with the bad water, let that clause be expunged. You understand? So that the other lofty contents of that bill will see the light of the day. So in that same posture of the National Assembly on this, because there are options. They can actually veto, you understand? They can override that veto. So if they're not doing that, we're also telling them, names have been sent to you. Please do the needful. You understand? Because essentially that's one of the reasons why we're here. Do the needful. Your constituents are crying. They're speaking all the time. All you needed to do, regardless of the body language of the presidency or the people who are behind this whole thing, is that you tell them that the people who sent you to the National Assembly are saying otherwise. We are just representing them. They brought us here. So that's what we're calling for, and that's what we keep reiterating all the time.
Well, we have to thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Early this morning, Mr. Sameela Musa, who is a national coordinator of Grassroots Mobilization Initiative and also a member of the Coalition of Northern Groups. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Early.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's leave this now to Lagos for our guest's closing comments.
Well, there you go. So what happens? What do you have in mind at the end of the day, whichever way this pendulum swings?
What I have in mind is that the president, we call him Your Excellency. He should be able to capture the mood of the country. He should be able to know what is the right thing to do. We should not wait for INEC, for the National Assembly to reject the list, because National Assembly cannot dictate to the president who to nominate. But the president should be able to look at, for the good of the system, what should I do? And I think that's the right place to do, since the Electoral Act is not still in place the way it should be. And I also think National Assembly, as a matter of urgency, should work on the Electoral Act within this week and send it back to the president so the Nigerians will be calm. Today, the ruling party do not even know when they are going to have their convention. That tells you a lot. The PDP is in comatose, so we need to find out who are we going to elect as the next president of the world's most populous black country.
Well, that will form part of our conversation in just a moment, but Mr. Chukwuma, legal practitioner, thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, back in a moment. Stay with us.